Oh, thanks for staying with us on the program this morning. Our guest joins us virtually from his residence in Abuja here to discuss the issues in the news. We're now joined by seasoned economist and public affairs commentator, Dr. Aliyu Ilias. Hello, Doctor. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
It's a pleasure to have you on the program. Doctor, yesterday we listened to quite a number of comments coming in from the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Alhaji Mohammed Idris, and also the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Chugar, who were all of the opinion that Nigeria would emerge stronger despite being labeled a country of particular concern by the United States. Let's get your assessments of the issues so far and the position of the government.
The fact remains that the information has been going around the country, and it spoke much more about Nigeria as a country of a particular concern. The fact remains that it is expected that such thing will likely. If you look at things generally, it actually shows that this thing has been going on for some time now, and we have not been able to actually do what we are supposed to do about it. Particularly at the time it was raised by the senator in America, it is expected that Nigerians should have react as expected by actually do a follow up. But it's as if what we are doing is ill-timed. We did not do what we're supposed to do as expected. Going forward, I think we need to continue to do a lot of things to make sure that we don't have the Department of War taking charge in Nigeria.
Now, I listened to the rhetorics on the part of the government of the day saying that the insurgency and terrorism we're fighting as a country dates back to the President Goodluck Jonathan's administration, and it was some of the low scoring cards on his administration's handling of the matter, and they're blaming opposition figures for misinforming the United States on the position of an alleged Christian genocide. Do you care to make comments in that regard?
I think it's not a correct statement, and I would not agree with that at all. Simply because I recall during President Jonathan, the same president and his party actually make some information out then. They were also saying that the government is not taking charge of it. They are also making a lot of commentary that are not good. They're saying that there is a particular direct challenge to the Christians and what have you. So I think so. But what I would say generally is that I would like the federal government to take their own responsibility. And what is their responsibility? The reason is that you will recall that we do not have ambassador up to now, and politically, there should be somebody who canvass for you at every point in time in wherever you are. This thing is very, very key. But for us, we don't have somebody canvassing for us in terms of a diplomatic issue. These are the things I want government to look at. As a matter of urgency, we need to have an ambassador across those countries so that when there's any conversation ongoing, you can actually directly tackle it, engage them, and discuss with them. But as we are now, we do not have anybody directly engaging in that. So for me, I will not say it's an opposition thing. And if opposition is trying to do that, there's another you said that if the whole thing is falling down, it's actually falling down on all of us. So I don't think opposition will benefit whatsoever in actually trying to, make the global community feel that there's a genocide in Nigeria. And as an individual, I can also tell you that I don't think there's genocide in Nigeria because as we have Christian dying in Benue, we can also say we have Muslim dying in the west, such as Samfara, such as Kebbi, Castina, even Meduguri. Though maybe it could be a mixture of the two. So I think we all have to rally around ourselves, make sure that we involve in the process of make sure that we are not in that category of particular concern, and be that as may, that we are not assisted in terms of direct confrontation to the terrorists by America, because we have history down the line of where America is involved in terms of trying to solve a lot of issues there. But up to now, the countries are not set, so we don't want to fall into that category.
To another issue. Let's talk about the solution you preferred, which we hear is gaining grounds. That is in terms of appointing ambassadors. How much of a role would the ambassadors play? Because remember when the government of the day said that one of the reasons why we haven't had special envoys and ambassadors is because of the cost of running such offices. What's your level of confidence if the government decides to make a U-turn and appoint ambassadors or special envoys with countries where we seem to have a little bit of diplomatic tension?
I think it's erroneous for government to be saying that they are going to spend more in terms of what they will spend for to have ambassador. It's a very wrong narrative, and we should run from such a negative narrative. It is customary. It is a customary thing for you as a country to have ambassador no matter what. So I don't know. What they should do is that they should block some other loopholes that they think our money is going to. We need to have an ambassador. So even though it's appears so late for us to appoint ambassador for America now, because before they will clear him, before he will start operation, that will be 6 months down the line. And what will happen would have happened. But to us, to tie other diplomatic area that we have, I think it's important we have ambassador. It's not a good one that we said we are spending money on ambassador. Then they should reduce the cost of managing the total executive. Not that we say we don't have ambassador. These are the negative results that we will gain from not having ambassador.
Now, we'll come back to more on these issues in a bit, but let's also look at it from some of the legislative interventions that have taken place on the floor of the red chambers. Now, at the Senate, lawmakers resolved to launch a comprehensive probe into repeated trail derailments. A number of the country's rail lines have experienced multiple crashes over the period in view, and they're also looking at new loans and contract debts as incurred during the President Muhammadu Buhari administration. Walk us through your position on the matter.
Right. I think it's so sad that we are not technologically inclined, and we are not doing everything possible to make sure that we monitor things through technology. At this age, if you look at the MD of railway, he said it may be vandalization. That's an open statement. We need a close-ended statement. That means he's not even sure of what the major problem is, and which is very sad. So for me, I think we should be sure, and we should get much more technology to actually ascertain what happens. Rail derail in different countries, but it's sad that we don't know the reasons, because it's when you are sure of the reasons that you can actually make sure that you stop it. Then why should we have it being vandalized? If let's concede without their own excuse. So I think government needs to do more, because even right from I remember Minister Amechi then was saying that they would deploy technology, they would do XYZ, they will make sure things work. But 4 years, 5 years down the line, we are still experiencing the same thing. So I think we need to take it serious and make sure that this rail actually works, so that people will be happy flying that road and they will have the confidence. I think government must take it serious, because it's a means of transportation that is not even well utilized. And from the onset, we are even discouraging people.
Technology, like you said in your view of the comments made as reasons as to why there are trail derailments, there are more pressing issues on the need for CCTVs to be installed in terms of monitoring and surveillance. There's a need for a modernization of the system as well. But if I'm to refer directly to the comments made by the president of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, he described the rail sector, which has experienced recurring failures, as a matter of national concern. He also lamented that despite huge loans is taken from China to invest in this sector, that there has been uninterrupted years of unsafe and reliable rail service. How do we account for the monies borrowed to invest in this venture that has been plagued by a number of accidents in recent time?
Right. If I recall, the last time I followed the rail from Abuja to Kaduna, I saw some Chinese people managing it, which I think I don't know how long they are going to manage. That simply shows that they don't want to hand over to us because they are not so confident that we are going to manage very well. I agree with you that we have spent humongous amount to make sure that this rail becomes more functional and are working appropriately. But so sad we couldn't account, and it's in our nature. I don't know how it comes to be our nature to actually not be able to actually account for things. But if you look at the investment in rail, I think the major thing is the direct investment. You know what I mean by direct investment? The borrowers, they are actually, spending it directly and aiming to actually use it over time before they hand it over. But in terms of maintenance, that is where the problem actually lies. And it's quite discouraging for Nigerians because by the time you see here, and when rail derail, it may not derail in the city, it will derail in the bush, thick forest. So, and people find it difficult. You remember the one that happens in Kaduna, Abuja, is still in our memory, and now we're having another one. So I think we should get much more professionals to handle it, and we should invest in more technology with adequate transparencies to account for every money expended on it.
Well, quite interesting times in terms of accounting. The Senate has also mandated its Committee on Land Transport to conduct an oversight, visit the affected routes, and report back within 2 weeks. So, pending the outcome of that probe, would also get sufficient feedback on the matter. Now, in moving on, let's come to one of the topics where I believe you'd have a lot to say. And this is following business mogul Femi Otedola's commendation of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's approval of 15% tariff on petrol and diesel. He says is a bold step towards achieving $1 trillion economy. However, fuel marketers are opposing the move, citing inflation concerns. What do you make of this matter? Is the move more in favor of the country protecting local refinery, or should we be concerned of inflationary effects on this decision?
Unarguably, we are on this different pedestal with Femi Otedola. He's a business person who thinks about maximization of profit, who thinks about that is a capitalist. So his capitalist thinking is always different from what the government should be thinking about. For me, I think it's a ill time. It is a wrong approach as at this point in time, simply because you remove fuel subsidy because you want to have much money. So we believe that we're having to remove fuel subsidy 2 years down the line. You've not been able. All we hear is that we have more money, but you're not thinking of bringing about 15%. I don't think we should even think about that. You should recall that we are oil country. How do I mean is that we have these natural resources. So then what is Nigerians benefiting if you are still having removed this first subsidy, you are still bringing about a charge on it? Government should look at different ways of raising their fund, not by increasing on taxation, on increasing tariff. There are other things, and perhaps the one that the first subsidy removal, we've not sufficiently see it is being used. And I agree with other concerns that it will bring about inflation. Recall that anything that has to do with energy, especially transportation, is going to have a ripple effect on Nigerians. And how we see the ripple effect is that it will translate to every commodity you want to purchase and all other things that has to do with, purchasing. So I think it's a very wrong one. Government should not even embark on that as well. Perhaps Nigerians are actually feeling the brunt of first subsidy removal and floating of naira up to now, and we are still hoping that by the time the tax, what have you, comes up again, is going to help us to, I mean, we are going to see the effect of it. So I think they should tarry, they should hold on, and they shouldn't even think in that direction. They should let us see what happens to the tax regime that is going to start by January. I think that's what should be their aim, not trying to actually bring about more taxation.
Revisit the front page of the Punch newspaper because there are a number of projections in terms of the amounts Nigerians will collectively pay yearly if the 15% tariff is implemented. The Punch has these two stories side by side. First, the advertorial with Mr. Femi Otedola's comments above the lead story. However, the lead story says Nigerians to pay 1 trillion naira extra for petrol yearly. This is if the 15% tariff, which you're calling for cautious approach in implementing, is effected alongside a new tax regime to begin on the 1st of January. If you scroll just above the 15% tariff, you'd also find Tinubu's 15% import tariff makes bold step towards $1 trillion economy, a position held by Mr. Otedola. Now, I don't know if this projection is correct by your calculations and metrics as well. 1 trillion naira extra for petrol yearly. Put us through how you believe that the Punch arrived at this calculation.
Of course, I'm very, very convinced that it will even be more than that because you know that when you're looking at petroleum, you will not look only at the vehicle that is consuming PMS. You have to look at other sundry things that need to use petroleum products. So I agree totally with them that on average, that's what we should be expecting. But on what benefit will it be for government for to see citizens of Nigeria wallowing in poverty and then they kept having more money and throwing it down to the states? I don't think it makes much sense because if you look at government, it should be welfareism and security of people. But when government decide through policy to make things much more difficult for people, it becomes something of concern. So for me, I think Punch is correct. However, I think government should be cautioned in moving toward this direction. That means they want to deepen the poverty of 139 million Nigerians in poverty because this has a strong effect on agriculture, on manufacturing, on industry, on service sector, on every sector. Energy is a challenge, and we are not trying to even make it much more easier. If you recall, the last time we have petroleum, the cost of petroleum now should be around 900 or 1,000. So, and nobody seems to be even complaining again. So, for me, I think we have to look at it critically and tarry.
Well, in moving on, let's also look at more on the issues discussed this morning across the front pages. The president is also seeking for a fresh loan of 1.15 trillion naira. Particularly, let's also revisit the front page of another newspaper, and it's the way the headline is published on the New National Star. It says Tinubu seeks fresh 1.15 trillion naira loan days after borrowing 2.8 billion naira. Nigeria's external debt shoots to 152.4 trillion naira in June. This is according to the Debt Management Office. Now, Doctor, there are more growing concerns on our debt burden, over 152.4 trillion naira in June alone. Uh, I know that some of the reasons given for this borrowing, particularly when you listen to the request on the floor of the red chambers, is to shore up for the deficit in the 2025 budget. Let's get your views.
I think we have to have much more fiscal discipline because it appears that this government is just abusing those process that's supposed to uh, guide us towards what we are going to borrow, why we are going to borrow, and the reason for borrowing. You recall that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said clearly that Nigeria now has more money, and we will find it. We will not actually borrow, will not be borrowing again. But we are seeing it. I mean, we are seeing it because I saw FIRS declare that they have actually beaten their record in terms of what they targeted. We have seen custom coming out, and we have also seen fuel subsidy bringing more money. In as much as deficit budget is not bad, borrowing is not bad, but we have to be strategic to actually look at. Even for me, I was thinking President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will not even borrow for 1 year, 2 years because of the more money we have. But so sad that this is what we continue to see every day. We see new borrowing every now and then. I think the National Assembly needs to do more. Beyond borrowing too. Where the oversight function is very, very key. For me, I don't think there's need for us to borrow at this level. I think we should control it and have some fiscal discipline to an extent. Perhaps the more money we are getting, we are giving it to states, and we have not seen the how productive those money is given to state now, from about 600 billion monthly to 2.2 trillion monthly. the gap is much. It is expected that we'll see what will justify that.
Now, even for more justification, the president of the Senate said that the president's request is in line with Section 44, 1 to 2 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act and formed part of the administration's strategy to ensure fiscal stability and effective budget implementation. At this point, I know the likes of Kenya and some other countries around the world have concurrent budgets running, but people have also questioned the legalities around having three budgets running concurrently. We still have the 2024 budget running, the supplementary budget for 2024, and the 2025 budget also, all within the same calendar period. Help us understand the provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Act and areas of compliance.
The sad one that the effort of President Muhammadu Buhari is just being eroded by this administration. I can tell you, I think President Muhammadu Buhari in that area actually tried a lot because I recall that he maintained January to December budget, and it doesn't bring any contradiction. It is much more easier for Nigerians and stakeholders to actually monitor how the money are expended. But now you are doing three things at a time. It's a common sense that it will be difficult to actually monitor, even by the Senate, let alone ordinary Nigeria. So it's a sad one that we are actually doing that. You know, those countries you are comparing to us, we cannot compare us in terms of population, in terms of states, in terms of our spending. You know, you cannot compare us together. I think the right thing should be done, especially fiscal discipline, budgetary budget discipline. We need to, because remember, are you saying that there could be three capital projects going concurrently and will not have issues? You know, the attention will be divided, and even government to monitor it will be pretty difficult. So I think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu need to revisit that and make sure that we maintain the January. You know, it can even, 1 year can fall into maybe March. At most April, they should have just closed that. You know, it doesn't mean the project is not going, but they would have bring out the money, settle everything and just oversight function that will remain. But this one that they are still, bringing money to do some projects, it's not good. It's not giving room for good accountability.
And even talking about the deficit, to be more specific, it's in being able to calculate the numbers. The 55 trillion naira budget is reportedly in deficit of about 13.5 trillion naira. Many are also worried that this deficit may even grow further to say a certain 20 trillion naira due to the creation of what they call them again now, the commissions newly created as well, regional commissions newly created. That's the word I was looking for. In showing up for this deficit, is the only way to go about it borrowing? Can the government consider cutting costs? How does it work with the budgetary provisions and existing fiscal laws?
Right. So before we even talk about the borrowing itself, let's look at the commission. Me, I'm not a fan of that commission because I think it's duplication of activities and a room for balkanization of some regions. So for me, I think we don't need that since we have existing 36 states and people are still agitating for more states. States can get their fund directly and attend to their capital projects. You know, region that hope to come together can come together on their own and implement whatever strategy. But this seems as if it's political settlement. You recall that we have Northeast because of the challenges of Boko Haram and insurgency. That's why we have Northeast Commission. But this one that we started spreading it of the political zone, it's a political game that's been not favor us. One, it is giving room for more expenditure. Remember, under each regional commission, there will be MD, there will be executives, there will be employment. That's another way to actually waste Nigerian money, if you ask me, because you have states already, so they will now become budgetary, dependent as well. That there's nothing they're actually doing. It's just to come together to look at project that federal government can decide to do this to this region. So for me, it's a duplication of activities and is another way of spending Nigerian money politically. We are saying that people that are getting Nigerian money politically, the executives are much. We are still adding
Now, in moving forward, let's take a listen to some of the debaters held in Tuesday's plenary on the floor of the Red Chambers, and then we'll come back to get
Small
your views on
budget.
it.
But the thing is that
I write to kindly request for the approval of the National Assembly to establish a 1,150,000,000,000 naira, that is 1.150 trillion, borrowing program in the domestic debt market to close the unfunded deficit gap created by the increase in the budget size over and above the prior approved revenue and borrowing plans. This request is pursuant to the provisions of Section 44, subsection 1 to 2 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, FRA, of 2007.
Listen to the comments as made by the President of the Senate, but with reference to the existing laws, the Fiscal Responsibility Act of uh, 2007, do you think that with the current realities, the law in itself needs to be amended to reflect our realities on ground?
too much cahoot between the executive and legislature, some of us began to have issues. We don't pray for them to be having a misunderstanding, but when they settle too much, it becomes a problem. Most things that even the senators have to actually probe because they are in one political party, because they have a common understanding, they began to just approve every thing the executive push to them. So I think that's where we have problem. I think the senators have to do their work, have to look into a lot of things they are doing because I hear President Tinubu himself saying that he has gotten more money that he will not borrow locally. I was thinking that would have given us a caution from borrowing more. So I think that cautious optimism should be raised, and we should control the way we handle things.
Now, in moving forward, let's see if we can squeeze in one more topic just to discuss with you for even if it's quarter of an hour before we let you go. Revisiting the issue as it concerns U.S. threats to Nigeria. We're seeing allies throw their weight behind Nigeria. The European Union, ECOWAS, and China have all lent their voice to back Nigeria, saying that the U.S. cannot in any way threaten a military invasion, revisiting the case of our sovereignty. Let's get your take on this. It's a new development coming in as we speak this morning. China, who happens to be one of our most benevolent lenders when we need funds, seem to be backing us in every stead. What do you make of this?
Well, for me, we should not rely on those our common people, our supporter and our lenders, because when the case actually happened in the long run, they may not be able to come to our rescue. Perhaps it has another opportunity for them to actually say yes, they want to give us more money. They are, this is geopolitics. Everybody wants to look at where they can actually benefit from. So we must not rely on them. If at all we agree that not even for Nigeria, President Trump is known for disregarding people's country's sovereignty, which has happened. You recall during the President Muhammadu Buhari, there's a particular name he called the African countries. So it's not new for him to actually embark on that. I think Nigeria should rather find a way to clear our names that there's genocide in our country. However, there's insecurity, but there is no genocide.
Now, economically speaking, people are looking at where the euro bond is this morning, despite US threats saying that it has not declined. Usually, stock markets also reflect some of the diplomatic tensions and brewing between countries. Why do you feel that the euro bond has not declined in this regard? And would we see investors' confidence wane over this decision with the back and forth between the US and Nigeria?
Right. Those stakeholder in investment.
Well, we do apologize for the loss in connection with Dr. Aliyu Ilias this morning. We're speaking to the matters at hand. Let's revisit a couple of newspapers that headlined this story. And as much as Dr. Returns would get his view on this, on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct earlier, you'd find that lead headline: China backs Nigeria against Trump's threats, warns against invasion. ECOWAS rejects genocide claim, calls for regional unity against terrorism. Let's see if we can get back to Doctor to get his thoughts there before he was rudely interrupted by the network. Hello, Doctor. You back now?
Yes, please.
All right, please pick up from where you left off.
Right. What I'm actually saying is that the operationalization of their stocks and all those things, is backed by a lot of things, and those things are very, very critical. So we may be seeing that, oh, these things will affect their stocks and their businesses. But on ground, we could see that people have trust in the investment. If you look at bond and what have you come there or coming up, it's about trust. So once you have the trust and people believe in what you are saying, they invest more. Then going back to China conversation about Nigeria, Nigeria should not be so confident in what China says. I will even believe ECOWAS compared to China, because China also sees us as a business opportunity. So they may not do much thing when America decide to actually invade. So we all hope they will not say they want, because if you look at the history of where they have invaded, like Iraq, uh, um, Syria, Afghanistan, most people, they left more worries for those countries than what they preach to actually do for them.
Now, still speaking to the economic perspectives in view, Nigeria's foreign minister was talking tough, saying that the nation is not a toddler and we have some level of self sufficiency. We cannot be bullied into some of the policies of the President Trump administration, citing visa restrictions, citing the trade tariffs that he had earlier imposed on many countries across the world. I don't know if you happen to stumble on the comments made by our foreign minister and you care to react in that regard.
Right. You see, the way Trump behaves, he behaves as if he's a global president, where uh, by their standard as America, that's how they actually want to think. So sometimes those there are. Remember, we should also go back to the premise on which America is trying to do this. Remember, we are having much more familiarity with this what's the name, this other power that comprises of China, Russia,
BRICS.
Indian. BRICS, thank you so much. That's the word. So when they see that we romance with them, the more it gives them much more concern. And if you look at trade surplus that we are having with China, which is it could be negative, but on the American side, it's becoming more dwindling. So those are the things. If you look at the commentary made by Kashim Shettima, you look at commentary made by our president, so America is seeing it as as an affront on our part, and they're looking at way to actually let us get our size. Remember, we are still so much indebted with them in terms of their Bretton Woods institution. So they believe that they need to bring us to size so that, and perhaps if you look at our country, uh, we are having balance of payment, balance of trade now. Dangote is actually doing well. We are even exporting aviation fuel to America. So perhaps I want to say maybe they don't want to see us doing well, and they don't want to see us dealing with other people. That could be part of the reasons why they think they should. So for what foreign minister is saying, I think we need to work diplomatically and be meticulous so that we will not have our economy, we will not have our country become a place of war.
Now, talking about the Naira, also looking at the trend on Monday, there was a slight gain. The Naira continues to remain stable despite all these pressures. But when we look at the threats as captured in a post made by the Truth on Monday as well, President Donald Trump was also threatening to cut aid to Nigeria. You'd recall at the start of his administration, there was also a suspension of the U.S. aids targeting interventions in health, particularly with malaria and tuberculosis, some of the projects that were funded by that money. But now with this new threat he is also issuing, do you think that we can take for further cuts in terms of foreign aid coming in from the US in particular? Hello, doctor. Well, quite interestingly, the network seems to not allow for a smooth conversation this morning with Dr. Aliyu Ilias, but on the projections as to what the threats are and how they could impact the nation's economy. More newspapers also headline this from the angle of the ECOWAS, the EU, and not forgetting China deciding to back Nigeria, whilst the Senate moves to liaise with the United States of America. It's also supposed to deliberate on that issue as it concerns our nation. However, looking at some of the stock market projections earlier, we would like to also keep you informed on that regard as well. Well, Bloomberg reported that Nigeria's currency recorded an intraday drop of 1.2% to 1,442 naira per dollar, its biggest one-day loss since the month of June, making it the weakest amongst emerging market currencies on Monday. That was the statistics on Monday. We're Wednesday today, but that was the day when President Donald Trump made the remark, and it was tied to that drop as well. Nigeria's dollar bonds also did record the steepest losses amongst emerging markets on Monday as well, whilst the dollar bonds declined across the maturity curve, accounting for all 10 of the worst performers in the emerging markets as of 10:45 a.m. in Lagos, according to data compiled by Bloomberg as well. Now, the reactions coming in, I did tell you about the foreign minister's position on the matter, saying that Nigeria is not a toddler and can have some self-sufficiency, irregardless of what is being said on the international scenes. Just to let you know again that over the last few months, particularly in October, our foreign reserves also hit $43.17 billion. Now, there are a lot of speculations by experts on how this kind of correlates to investors' confidence and the drive to get Nigeria to the $1 trillion economy, not barring whatever threats that we have, stating that our sovereignty remains a top priority. Well, revisiting some of the front pages this morning, let's pick up this day newspaper as well. On this day, like we earlier told you, the headline, China rejects planned US military action. EU says it stands by Nigeria. Idris assures inconsistent narrative will be handled with utmost seriousness. Too good to Trump. State-backed religious prosecutions impossible under Constitution. Afenifere says Trump's threats aimed at forcing Tinubu to renegotiate. I think that strapline is quite instructive in its own words. Afenifere, Trump's threats aimed at forcing Tinubu to renegotiate. What are the terms of renegotiation? What are some of the low-hanging fruits? Would it also inform the decision of the government going forward on what it would do in that matter? Well, let's see if we can rejoin Dr. Aliyu Ilias, who makes another attempt to join us as we conclude the discussion. Hello, Doctor, you back now?
Yes, please. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we apologize. The network seems not to want you to lend your thoughts. But let's look to conclude in the next 2 minutes. If you can just sum up your thoughts for us.
I think the statement of the foreign affairs minister is quite valid. We are a sovereign country that we have a way of doing things to an extent, even though they happen to be colonial masters or what have you. We still have our sovereignty. I think that should be respected. And this is also tests to Nigerians to actually maximize and use their political and economic power to actually solve a lot of problems. I think it's just a challenge to Nigerians that we need to solve economic, political, and most are important security problem. It's not a good news when we lost a life at either a Christians or a Muslim. We must ensure that there is a security of life and property in our country. That will bring us to be a destination for investment.
Well, we must thank you, Doctor, for taking our time to join the program and lend your thoughts to the issues in the news. We're wishing you the best of the rest of your day.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
Always a pleasure. Well, we'll go on a break, and when we return, our next guest will join us as we continue to revisit the issues on the front pages and all the items on the lineup this morning. Stay with us.